Now, there is a significant number of politicians in the European Union who are absolutely livid that Elon Musk is getting involved into German politics. And the question is like, why shouldn't he get involved into German politics? I mean, at the end of the day, he is a businessman. He's got a lot of businesses in Germany. He employs a lot of people. And politics are constantly involved in the way that he does business. Whether it is in regulating his businesses, making him pay taxes, so on and so forth. And so it makes sense that he may want to support a specific party or another. And in fact, this is not unusual at all. I mean, there's other rich people that get involved into politics constantly, such as Bill Gates or George Soros. But I guess like they get involved on the behalf of the establishment, and so they're the good billionaires. Elon Musk is the bad billionaire because he supports the anti-establishment. Which, by the way, for anyone that actually knows what the AFD platform is, it's not even that right wing. I mean, compared to some Eastern European parties, they're pretty centrist. And also, like, compared to the Republican Party in the United States or the MAGA movement, they're like a little bit to the left, I would say. But this is how Germany has managed to regain control and why Angela Merkel has managed to get so many terms. It's specifically due to the fact that they're not actually airing conversations in the public and having discussions about politics. Instead, what they do is they use censorship. And censorship works so far, but at the end of the day, the problem isn't AFD. The problem is that you have billions of your people unsatisfied with the current government. They feel unrepresented. They feel like they've been cut out from the conversation. And you can see this, what happens when the AFD manages to get seats. They are ostracized. And so, like, if you ostracize the representatives, you're basically ostracizing the millions of people whose grievances aren't really addressed. And they don't have to be addressed in the sense that you have to give them what they want, but, like, you can at least try to find a middle ground or some negotiation or something like that, which is what's not happening, right? And so Elon Musk has pledged support towards the AFD, which I understand is a far-right party ran by a radical lesbian. I'm not kidding. Like, the leader of the AFD, as far as I know, like, she's a lesbian. Goes to show how much of a far-right person she is. But, like, during the last speech, Elon Musk has said something which upset a lot of people, and is the fact that people in Germany should be proud to be Germans. Which is normal and healthy for any nation on earth. You have to be proud of your country, right? Because at the end of the day, you're paying taxes for your country. And if you're not happy for your country and you're paying taxes, then it will feel like the country is evil. And you will gain a lot of spite, not just for your country, but for the politicians. Because, like, if you don't like the nation state, it views like they're mugging you of cash, like they're stealing money from you, right? And it's not even that, but it's also like if there's a conflict, which seems to happen more and more nowadays, right, with Russia looming and whatever. If you want people to defend your country, well, you gotta treat it different than an economic zone. Because right now, this is what Germany seems to be like. It's a plot of land where economic transactions happen, and some people happen to live there. And of course, anyone can be a German, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of culture, regardless of language. Like, it's just a question of paperwork. So, in other words, I'm a potential German. Like, all I gotta do is to go to Germany and get involved into the system, and then I get the passport or the paperwork that says I'm a German, and there we go, right? So, like, there's no more requirement to have like a connection to the land or a certain pattern of behavior. Like, none of that is required, right? And so, like, Elon Musk said, like, no, like, it doesn't have to be this way. You can actually be proud to be a German.
Fortunately, I can't hear you very well.
Right. And so this got a lot of people to freak the fuck out. And I will go a little bit and explain to you why this is happening. Like, what exactly happened in German history that got to this culture where people freak out if you say you're proud to be a German. Because a lot of people think they know, but they don't know the whole truth. And I think it's important if you share this video around and tell other people, because once they get like a little bit more of a historical understanding, a lot more things will start to make sense. And it also explains why Eastern Germany votes massively for the AFD while Western Germany does not. And so I'm pretty sure like everyone knows the World War II, and you guys understood what happened. Like I don't get, I don't need to go through all the history and everything, but one of the interesting thing is the Nuremberg trials. So at the Nuremberg trials, the Nazi leadership was trialed for crimes against humanity. And their defense at the time was like twofold. Number one, they would say, look, it wasn't illegal what we did at the time. And so, like, you can't punish someone for a law that's not written. And the counter argument from that was no, because certain crimes are so hideous in nature that it's a crime against humanity. That's how the concept even came to be. It's the fact that it's such an evil act that you guys did, which is a crime against humanity. So, like, every person would inherently know that what you did was wrong, so we're still going to punish you. And the other argument was that we were just following orders. Like, they were in the military and they were told that they have to do something, and if they refused to do it, they would get shot. Or their families could suffer, right? But the counter argument to this was that, no, this is not an excuse because the only reason the atrocities happened is because people went on with it. Like, if all of you would have stood up and said, like, we're not doing it, then the atrocities wouldn't have happened. And so a lot of people, right, like you guys know from the Nuremberg trials, got the rope. And the question remained, it's like, all right, well, this is the standard, right? Like, this is the morality we're going to punish people by. But, like, what do we do with the actual German citizens? Because, while, you know, no one would say that they should get the same penalty as the leadership, I mean, surely they, too, were involved with the Nazi party in some way, which means that they, too, should get jail time or certain punishment, right? Like, they also committed a crime. Obviously, like, not as serious as the leadership, but they cooperated in producing the horrors of the Nazi party. And so the reality of the situation is that, well, you can't really lock up millions of people. Even if you were to prove that, okay, well, this guy was an agitator and he spread the Nazi propaganda, right? Like, there's millions of people that did that. And so what the Allies concluded is that these individuals were brainwashed. Like, this ideology just brainwashed them. So, like, the entire Germany and the German people were brainwashed by Nazi ideology. Like, take into account, I'm not editorializing here. I'm not casting judgment. I'm just telling the historical account. Like, this is legitimately what happened and the conclusion that people came. And I'm overly simplifying it in order to include it into a small YouTube video, right? Because it's a lot more complex. But basically, Germany, as you know, was split into several parts. Some of it was under Soviet control, like East Germany. The rest was under the Allies' control. But the Allies' control was also split into several other influence zones, like a part that was influenced by the French, another part that was influenced by the British, and of course a part that was influenced by the Americans. And the process of denazification is the attempt to unbrainwash the Germans. And the process was done differently both in the East and in the West. So in the East, they were pushing for Germans to accept socialism, right? And of course, you know, reject Nazism and embrace socialism. This is why a lot of AfD support is coming from Eastern Germany, because, like, they received a different type of, how should I say, re-education. This is how the communists actually called it. With the Allies, however, the thing was a lot different. Their method of denazification was a lot more complex. So they got the help of a couple of Jewish people that fled the nation before or during Hitler's rise to power, and they were now in the United States. And these Jewish people, they were experts in communism. They understood capitalism because they lived in the United States. And they also understood Nazism because they also have family there and had connections there. And so, like, they went to they went and created the Frankfurt School, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with it, where they tried to explain, like, how Nazism came to power. And they also tried to explain why communism didn't work. And their work was to create an ideology that was different than communism, but at the same time, they made it so that it's different than capitalism as well. And as most of you know, they created the proto ideology of what we call woke now. At the time, certain critics would call it cultural Marxism, but I understand that's a conspiracy theory and it's anti-Semitic. But regardless, I'm pretty sure like all of you are aware of what that ideology looks like. They basically concluded that culture is not top down, it's more like a net, and instead of seizing the means of production, if you seize the means of culture, you can reshape the way a society functions. And so like they created this entire ideology where it had like some Christian elements to it, in the sense that every German person that's born like shares the original sin, the guilt of the Holocaust, and that the German people are responsible for the state of the world, and they need to basically become anti-Nazis and constantly dedicate their lives into being anti-Nazis. And so you have like pretty much like what the woke culture is, but applied only to the German people, right? And so there was a lot of propaganda, book burning as well. They don't really mention that in the history works, because they try to make it as book burning is something particular to the Nazis, but the Allies did it as well. Again, you can justify it or you can say it's bad. It's up to you. I'm trying not to editorialize, but to just recount the events as best as I can. And what will happen in the future is that this ideology basically takes a life of its own. Like it's incredibly popular, it's incredibly viral. There's people that genuinely believe in it 100%. The concept of critical theory is incredibly well received by many academics, people in the academia who become genuine converts to this culture. They will stop promoting or advancing other teachers that do not share it, while promoting and advancing others that do. And so the ideology just gets out from the borders of Germany, and it gets to have like certain elements from every nation state that it becomes associated with. So like if for the Germany the great sin is the Holocaust, for Britain the great sin is the British Empire, for the United States the great sin is slavery, so on and so forth. And like in the beginning, the German people were considered to be the privileged ones, the evil ones, right? But then it becomes the Brits, it becomes the Americans, and eventually all of this ideology unites itself under one banner, and it becomes like Europeans. Concepts such as anti-Semitism are now associated with mental illness. The same thing with concepts such as homophobia, transphobia, racism. Like all these concepts are now considered pathological, mental illness. Christianity is a problem, right? Like the mental illness is the brainwashing. They're basically suggesting that normal people aren't like that. They're not born like that, but it's just by being exposed to radical ideologies that they get brainwashed and they become various types of phobic. And so as time moves on, even after Marcuse passed away, the ideology continued, and it was financed now by the government, because the ideology was like really good into tapping into various ways of obtaining finances and powers, usually through NGOs, by supporting certain politicians that agree with them. And this ideology becomes dominant after Occupy Wall Street as well, because it's a very useful ideology in spreading people to control them, right? Like you're spreading people in different factions with the purpose of controlling them, because, again, this is what they were trying to accomplish in Germany, right? Like this was the whole purpose of the ideology. It's like, how do you control a group of people that just lost the war and they may have strong resentment towards you? Well, you use the ideology. And so, it's a little bit ironic because, again, like this was sponsored by the United States at the time. Like they are the ones that placed the ideologues into positions of power. They are the ones that finance the ideologues with the purpose of making sure that the Germans after the war are not going to rise up or protest or burn down cities and stuff. And so we come all the way to this point where, the ideology was so successful that even the descendants of those people who haven't grown in anything that has to do with the Nazi ideology or anything like that are still supposed to feel guilt over what happened almost 100 years ago. And again, they had nothing to do with it, right? Like their actions didn't cause any military conflict. But again, the ideology is going, what was basically at the time built around showing someone an atrocity and be like, you were responsible for this, right? Like they would show a mass grave and be like, you are responsible for this, even if you at the time were a 5-year-old, right? Again, it's the woke concept of privilege, right? Like you're a white person, you have privilege. Look at the atrocity from the British Empire. Look at the atrocity of slavery. Look at the atrocity of this and that. And so now, when Elon Musk is saying this, that he's basically cracking down at this concept, which is still strong today because there's a video on the internet. You can go on YouTube and search for it. Angela Merkel throws away German flag, right? Like this is the German mindset. They genuinely are educated to dislike their nation state, which, you know, like after World War II, I guess it would make sense, but it's been like so many years. Like, when is it that Germans are going to be allowed to actually be proud of the fact that they're German, the same way that the Poles are proud to be Polish, in the same way that Romanians are proud to be Romanians and Americans are proud to be Americans? Like, when will Germany be allowed? If not now, when? Right? Like, what about 100 years from now? Will they be allowed? Like, 200 years from now, can they say, like, I'm proud to be a German? Or are they're supposed to behave like some displaced people who may have a land to stay in, but it's not really something they should be proud of? And this is the main issue with Elon Musk. Like, he's basically cracking down on this mindset, and especially like him being an American, or at least he's viewed as being an American, right? Because I understand he's from South Africa, but like, he does have American citizenship. And so the way he comes off, it's almost like you're forgiven. Like, you don't have to behave like this anymore. Like, it's been several generations. You can let go of the past. And the people who are interested in maintaining the narrative and maintaining the ideology, even though it doesn't serve its purpose anymore, they're freaking out, right? Because again, like, the woke ideology is a very profitable one. Like, there's politicians that are having their seats based on it. There's a lot of private enterprises that are taking money from BlackRock, like they're taking ESG cash and so on and so forth in order to keep it up. And environmentalism is heavily tied into the woke mindset. And so there's a lot of people that are freaking out, not because of a moral issue, but simply because of financial issue. So anyway, right, it's also ironic, right? Like the way that the Americans created an ideology to segregate and try to change the way of thinking of the members of a foreign state, and then the same ideology ended up being used against them. With the consequences that we know, like Trump is trying to undo some of the damage that was caused and try to redo the ideology to go back to the original American way of life, where people don't freak out if they see a couple of kids doing the Pledge of Allegiance. Anyway, right, let me know what you guys think, and as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.